Welcome back, listeners. Today we're talking about a source of wealth and proof of funds. Bruce is back with us to explain a bit about the hurdles and the requirements and the context of why we have these requirements. I must say, as a previous banker and working as an investment guy now, it's one of the things my clients hate most when you ask them to prove where they got their money. But it doesn't come from us. It doesn't come from Investec Bank. It comes from regulation because of the Epsteins of the world and the money launderers and drug dealers that are hiding behind banks. And we then are required to do this enhanced due diligence to ensure that everything we're doing is clean. Particularly in our example, because our investments touch digital assets, we follow enhanced due diligence as stipulated by Investec Bank and the SARB, which will require you to give specific disclosures. For your 150,000 Rand equity, which you invest in the strategy, that needs to be your own money, where you can show that that was earned or donated to you or inherited or saved or from the sale of a capital asset. But for the second item, which is the FIA, where you have your 150,000 Rand equity, but now you are demonstrating 2 million of liquid funds available to apply for that FIA that we discussed in an earlier video, that can be loaned funds, which is different from your equity. So we just got Bruce back to talk about that part quickly. Do you want to share a little bit more for us, Bruce, on FI and SDA, specifically with regards to source of wealth and source of funds and the application of that?
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Bilal, and you're quite right. I think we're playing in a space now where regulators are quite concerned just about the ease of making wealth shift between people so easily. And because of that, there's a whole bunch of rules and regulation around it. And that obviously equates to intensive admin, both on your side and obviously on the listener's side as well. So those of you that joined the earlier videos in the series will remember we spoke about the FI application process, and two of the key points there were around proving the source of your wealth and then the source of your funds. So I think let's deal with the source of wealth first. Effectively, what we're talking about there is, can a listener substantiate their balance sheet, and will it support the revenue streams? And with that, then, would we be able to prove that they're in a position to show the SARB via the authorized dealer and SARS later on that they actually have the money, they have a personal balance sheet, and can they show how that was built up over time? That's probably really what it comes down to. And in this category, all your assets count. So whether you are a property tycoon or whether you have a very successful business, whatever it might be that contributed to your source of wealth, that would qualify. I think Bilal raises a very important point in terms of the rules of the game when it comes to SARB, though, is that what they don't accept with crypto is that the source of your wealth is a loan from your rich grandpa or your uncle or what have you. That is not something that they're comfortable to do, and they've regulated against that. So you are immediately blown out of the water if that's the route you want to take. Obviously, there are a lot of investors out there who've seen the opportunity, who've heard friends and family introduce and are excited. But if their only option is really to go and take a loan, then they kind of finished before they even start with that. It's just not allowed. If we then move on to the source of funds, that is a much narrower definition, and really we're looking at cash or near cash type assets. So let's go back to our property tycoon. He's got a massive portfolio. It demonstrates how he's built up personal wealth of 50 million Rand over the years. But if there's no cash in that business or in his bank account to actually apply and show that we'll be able to shift this money offshore, then he's obviously not going to be able to apply for FIA. A typical solution and examples like this might be to go and take a mortgage bond over some of those properties, free up the cash in that way and demonstrate that it's available. And in that way, he might then be able to unlock an FIA. Whether he chose to take that physical cash, declare a dividend in his company, pick up the dividends withholdings tax and pay it across to himself, or whether he chose to leave it in the company and create a loan between the company and him. Both of those would be legitimate ways to actually unlock the FIA. So I think that broadly is the distinction between the two, and is also the difference in the rules of the game between SARS and SARB.
So for the 150, there is no loan facility available, but for the FIA, there are ways that you can have a loan against particular assets to raise that liquidity, being a key point. In either of those options, you could always sell a capital asset to generate that liquidity.
You always have that option to sell. Look, that requires a bit of a sit down with either your financial planner or a tax person, because that could potentially trigger capital gain taxes, and it might not be the best option for the person. Provided it was a non-core asset and they were happy to pick that up, or there wasn't a big gain to be paid, then that might be a solution. For us, for most people, it's probably going to be better to get a lend against the asset, because remember, you don't necessarily have to actually physically take the cash from a facility. So for example, if someone unlocked a mortgage bond and we had R1 million available in the bond, we would be able to use that to apply for the FIA, but we may not necessarily choose to pull it all out or leave it out. So in that way, you could always put it back. It's a lot more flexible than, for example, selling the asset and having that be a permanent thing.
Exactly. No, thank you, Bruce.
If you do show source of funds as your access bond, for example, let's say it's to the value of R1 million, that doesn't mean that you have to send the full R1 million offshore in a single trade. You could use money from your click account, for example, to move out into your Investec corporate cash management account held by Stewards, and send off those funds on a pro rata basis, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point.
Cash you have available.
Quite correct, Graham. So yeah, so you could apply for a nice big facility, leave the 150 in circulation. After that FIA is exhausted, you could add your gain plus use your facility and start the process again.
One other method that has worked is, as Bruce mentioned before, between spouses there is the ability to transfer capital, or you actually may donate up to 100,000 Rand between people, free of donations tax, once off per annum, which is with 2/3 of the 150 that you may require.
Yeah, quite correct, Bilal. Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to FIA, certainly a donation, especially when it comes to parents and children, is a great option. You do get the 100,000 a year. And also between spouses, there's an exemption for donations tax, which a lot of people do know, a lot of people don't. But where we're finding guys fall down is if you are going to make a donation, although there's no tax, there's still a requirement to report it to SARS. So often guys will be, oh, this is a simple fix. No, we don't need you. We know what we're doing. They do the donation, draw up the deed, all hunky-dory, and then they apply to SARS and it gets kicked out. And when they phone the call center to find out why, they're like, but you haven't registered this deed of donation at SARS. So that's just another little tip and a trick to note. If you are going to do that for SARS purposes, you do need to declare it at a branch.
And then I think potentially a better way to avoid that donations process is to do a loan between spouse and partner, because it doesn't require that additional admin of registering that donation. Is that correct?
That is quite correct, Graham. Again, it's not always as simple as that. It's a faster way, but you know, when we're sitting down with couples, one of the big things you want to do there is structuring so that you're not having a situation where one spouse is paying all the tax and another one's paying none. And in order to do that, you need an asset base to be more evenly split. And typically the best way to sort that out is through a donation, not necessarily a loan. So it's not a one size fits all, but if speed is your game, and you don't want to have to go down to SARS and do some sort of registration of the deed of donation, then certainly the loan is the quicker way to unlock it.
Right.
Well, guys, I mean, the core thing just for our listeners to remember is that this is a product of a regulated investment business. We're dealing with a credible bank called Investec Bank. You know, we walk in the light. Therefore, there is paperwork, there is proof of wealth, proof source of funds, and these things will have to be done to be in line with the law. And it may annoy you, it may take a bit of time, but this is the cost of doing business with any investment today. So please help us to help you to get this done as quickly and efficiently as possible. Bruce, thank you for your time, and thanks for joining us and sharing with our listeners, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Bilal. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Bruce. Bye-bye.
Cheers.